everybody, this is Laura, City Scrapper. Thank you so much for joining me on my channel today. Today I have a video for a layout that I made using the April My Creative Scrapbook limited edition kit. I have a number of videos that I recorded and edited and never had the opportunity to voice over because new projects and new layouts were taking up my time. So I'm making an effort to get all of these videos up on my channel so that you can watch them. The April kit featured beautiful papers and embellishments from the 49 and Market Art Options Avesta collection. I absolutely love 49 and Market. It might be my favorite manufacturer, but I shouldn't say that because I have a lot of favorites. So I started by picking out a number of embellishments and I inked the edges using some distress ink in Vintage Photo. This is the photo that I'm going to use for this layout. This is from the day that my younger daughter Julia graduated from high school, and this was a picture that we took right outside of the school after she graduated. I'm using all of those elements that I inked a few moments ago and I'm arranging them around the photo. At this point, I had already made several layouts using this kit, so I had a few scraps of paper and the banner that's right underneath the photo now and the scalloped edge that I punched out, those were from other layouts. I made them, but I didn't end up including them on the page, so I was trying them out on this page. I love this lace laser cut. It's so detailed and I really wanted to include it on the layout, but I just couldn't find the right spot for it. So now that I have all of the big pieces in place, I'm going in with some of the smaller embellishments and I'm layering those around the photo. There were a lot of stamps in the laser cuts and the ephemera for this layout, and I really like those stamps. They were different sizes and I'm including a number of those on this layout. This layout goes through a lot of changes. The background that you see there, that was created for another layout. I tore a piece of 12 by 12 inch paper a couple of inches down from the top, and then I used some strips of paper, put them on a diagonal, and then I have that peeking out of the top of the paper. And the reason that I didn't show that to you is because I'm going to make another background that is very similar. It's the same technique. Well, I'm not sure if it qualifies as a technique, but it's the same method. And I'm going to create a similar diagonal background with strips right now. So I took a whole bunch of strips of paper and I have some abandoned coral distress oxide and I'm inking the edges of all of the strips. I have a piece of heavyweight white cardstock and I want the diagonals to be at a 45-degree angle, and this strip of paper is 6 inches high, so I measured 6 inches from the lower left-hand corner of the paper and then I drew a little line. I connected the upper left-hand corner with the line that I drew, and then that will create a 45-degree angle. And then I covered that piece of white cardstock with lots of ATG adhesive, and now I'm going to attach those inked strips of paper down, and I have the first strip at a 45-degree angle, and then all the other strips will be at the same angle because I'm layering them right next to each other. And I'm trying to spread out the different colors and the different widths. I'm just kind of eyeballing it. I'm not counting how many strips it's been since I put down a certain color or anything, but I do like to have the variety of different widths and different colors. Now they're all placed down where I want them. I have to say I really enjoy the process of putting these strips of paper down. It's just something that I think is fun. And I find so many uses for these strips of paper that have been assembled. I just think that they add so much to the layout because there are so many different colors and patterns in a very small area. I'm starting off the background again. I'm using a different piece of pattern paper from the kit. And I think that this piece of pattern paper is a better choice because it's not as busy as the other paper, and I have a lot going on in that cluster that I created. So the paper that has all the diagonal strips attached to it was a little bit bigger than I wanted it to be, so I cut it down a little bit. I'm going to use the rest of the strips on another part of the layout. And then I cut down that background piece of paper. I don't like to waste any paper, and the bottom part of that paper was just going to be under the paper that has the strips on it. So I assembled these papers on a piece of scrap paper that I had in my stash. And now I have the background finally set up the way I want it, and I'm going to start attaching some of the embellishments down. Now this is my title cluster. It says smile, and then there's a little sentiment that says chase after your dreams. And I thought that that went really well with the photo because it's a graduation photo. So now I'm attaching that big cluster down to the background. I have the dimensional flowers that I placed on earlier. I have those attached down. And now I'm adding some photo corners. I used my favorite punch that I use all the time, my EK Success Scalloped Photo Corner Punch. I ink each of those pieces with the abandoned coral, and then I attach the photo corners down to the layout. I chose that darker coral color for the photo corners because I was thinking that that would help to draw some attention to my photo. I made a little adjustment to the leaf at the bottom of the title cluster. I positioned it so it's a little bit further down. I added a little laser cut bow to underneath the photo, and then I added some small butterflies to the title cluster. I wanted to add some leaves to the left-hand side of the cluster. I used the Distress ink in Vintage Photo once again, and I inked the edges of the leaves. On this layout, I mainly use the Vintage Photo Distress ink, but I also use the Distress Oxide in Abandoned Coral. I used to only use one color on a layout, but now I'm starting to realize that the whole layout can still look cohesive with more than one color ink. So that's something that I've been trying out lately. These 49 and Market collections are often jam-packed with the elements that I love. I love leaves, I love flowers, and I absolutely love butterflies. I like adding butterflies to the background because the butterflies are flying. You can, but you don't have to connect them to the main cluster. And I like having elements that kind of transition or bridge the background with the larger clusters, and I think that butterflies do that. Here I'm struggling a little bit. I want that hole in that tag to be a little bit bigger so that I can use this little ring. I use the We Are Memory Keepers punch to punch out that little ring. It almost looks like one of those page savers that we used to use years ago to keep our loose leaf in our binders. Totally dating myself here, but that's exactly what they look like to me. So I finally have that ring attached down, and now I'm going to be popping up the butterflies, and this is something that I also do all the time. I'll put a little bit of foam on their wings, and then I'll put some adhesive down the center and on the foam, and then press down on the center, and then it makes the wings look like they pop up a little bit, and it's a little bit of dimension that I really like to add to the pages. Next, I'm going to work for a few moments on that left-hand side of the cluster. I'm adding a little tiny rose, and even though it's very small, I like the idea of having an element that is a smaller size. Everything there is kind of large, so this small rose just makes the cluster look a little bit more interesting, I think. And then I wanted to add something to the top. I wanted to bring those colorful stripes to the top, but I didn't want to add a whole other strip. So I'm just cutting a little bit out of the paper, and I'm going to have these strips showing through. And I'm sorry, I'm a little bit out of frame there for a moment. I'm distressing this piece that I cut out. And I will be very honest with you, I always get a little nervous whenever I am almost done with the layout and I cut a chunk out of it. but I was happy with the way that this looked. I thought that it did bring those same colors to the top of the layout, and then it makes it a little bit more balanced. And I spent a little bit of time distressing the edge because those 49 and market papers are absolutely beautiful. They're so heavyweight, so it takes a little bit more time to distress them. It's definitely worth it, and I love working with heavyweight papers. I'm adding some ribbon to the tag on the top right hand side and trimming the ribbon down a little bit. I just wanted a small amount. I'm adding some large pearls to the large scallop that's underneath the photo. These pearls are bigger than what I usually work with, but I liked the scale. I thought that it was something a little bit different. Then I wanted to add some pearls to other places on the page, so I'm adding some smaller pearls to each of the photo corners. I've gotten into the habit of adding some kind of embellishment to the photo corners. Now the layout doesn't look finished to me unless I have something there. My layouts don't look finished. I don't feel that way when I look at other people's layouts. And I had a smaller pearl on those photo corners. It looked a little too small. I switched it out for more of a medium size, and now I'm putting the smallest size pearl that I have on the centers of the butterflies. These pearls come in strips. These are from the Brad and Eyelet Outlet, and I use these all the time for this purpose of putting pearls in the centers of butterflies. They're nice and small, and they go in the centers of all of the butterflies that I've come across, regardless of their size. If the butterflies are really tiny, I might just put 2 pearls, and for the larger butterflies, I might put 4 or more pearls down the center. It all depends on the size. I wanted to put something between the strips of paper on the bottom of the layout and the pattern paper on the top. So I used this punch. This is an EK Success punch, and I really love this punch. I just ordered this fairly recently. It's a lace looking cutout, and I thought this would be a good choice. I'm only using a little of it. I just felt that that edge looked a little abrupt, so I put the punched out border, and then I also put a little tiny scrap of paper. I had these left over from the scraps that I used to make the diagonals, so I layered that in there as well. Once I have that attached down, I work a little bit with these leaves that I have over the postage stamp on the left. I position them the way I want them, and then I use a little bit of gel glue to attach them down. Most of the elements on the page I use ATG adhesive to attach down because that's repositionable, but those laser die cuts from 49 and Market, they're extremely delicate. They're really beautiful. I don't know of any other die cut that's that delicate. I love the way that that looks, but I do have to use some liquid glue to attach those down so that I don't break them as I'm gluing them down to the page. I pop up and add another butterfly to that top cluster, and then I just spend a little bit of time moving some of the leaves and that little butterfly around just to get it just the way that I want it. I often find that little adjustments with angle and placement of embellishments can make a big difference to my eye, so I like to take the time to angle things and arrange them until I'm happy with the results. I had another butterfly, and I found a home for him on the top of the left-hand shutter. I often add something to the dimensional flowers to help bring them together with the rest of the layout. Sometimes I'll add some diamond dust or some glitter paste. For this layout, I decided that I just wanted to ink the edges of the petals with some distress ink in Vintage Photo, and I ended up being really happy with the way that this made the flowers blend together with the rest of the page. And I didn't go crazy with the distress ink. I just added a little touch of it, like I said, to the edges of the petals. And then I started adding one of my favorite additions to any page, which is small florals. So obviously we already have tons of flowers and leaves, but I like to add, especially this particular die cut, to my pages. I like the way it makes all of the clusters look a little more airy, not so solid, and then these extend into the background often, and once again that helps the background and the main cluster to come together. And then as I'm adding these little floral pieces, I end up rearranging some of the other embellishments. I have to, at a certain point, tell myself that a layout is done, because a lot of times I will continue arranging and rearranging all day long. Now I finally have that cluster on the left the way that I want it, and I noticed that one of the pearls I put down was coming loose, so I'm using some gel glue to attach it down. Lately, I've been using glossy accents to attach things like pearls and enamel dots to the page. I just think that it holds a little bit better, but the gel glue is also good. I do think the glossy accents is a little bit better. Now I'm popping up the title that says Smile. I'm using some pieces of fun foam, cutting them nice and small so that I can fit them on the title, and then I'm attaching it back down where I had it on top. And as I was adding those little buds or branches to the page, I got a little sidetracked, but now I'm going back to adding them in a couple of spots around the layout. And I'm sorry, I don't know the manufacturer of this particular die, but I have seen quite a few dies that are similar to this that are currently available that have those little buds on them. And I'm always kind of debating whether or not they are buds or berries, but it doesn't really matter. I like the way they look on the layouts. And now I have finally arranged them the way I want them. And now I'm going in with some gel glue and I'm gluing all of them down to the layout. And I always just glue them at the base so that I can move them around. And also I don't like them glued flat down to the layout. I like the way they lift up a little bit when they're just glued down at the base of that stem. Now I've covered up my photo using a piece of plastic, and now I'm adding some white splatters to the background, and that was the final touch, and this layout is complete. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. Please take a look in the description box. There you'll find the link to the My Creative Scrapbook website, where if you are interested, you can view and purchase a subscription to one of their beautiful kits. I hope that you have a fantastic day, and I will see you all again soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.